Right, so once again, the Green Party trying to bin off appallingly bad legislation that is going woefully underreported in the House of Lords, because Labour once again side with the Tories over it. But when it is on matters concerning the NHS, Labour siding with the Tories should ring alarm bells in anyone's head. Yet this is what we have. Green Party peer Natalie Bennett attempted a fatal motion to try and kill off the Anaesthesia Associates and Physicians Associates Order of 2024, based on concerns that it represents a significant constitutional change without the necessary parliamentary oversight. Significant constitutional change is one way of putting it. Going to the doctor and not knowing if you're actually seeing a fully trained, experienced doctor or not is going to be the reality for many of us. That is terrifying and fundamentally will lead to those able to pay to see doctors and those who aren't on the NHS entering instead a healthcare lottery. Right, so in a move widely seen, at least in those circles even aware of this happening, because the mainstream media are typically silent on something that actually matters to us, as the two main parties join forces to strip us of the quality healthcare we all believe we're entitled to when we seek medical assistance free at point of use from our NHS, is an attempt to block the blurring of the lines between fully qualified, trained and experienced doctors and so-called associate anaesthetists and associate physicians, AAs and PAs for short, and clearly by the terminology, not doctors. By placing these AAs and PAs under the oversight of the General Medical Council, though, the GMC, who have always only been a regulator of actual doctors, the concern is that people will not realise that these AAs and PAs are not actually real legitimate doctors at all. That confusion can come about as a result that people may not realise they are not seeing a doctor, but are instead seeing somebody fast-tracked into a doctor's role to fill the yawning gap of vacancies coming up in this country as we continue to not train enough doctors, as we lose more of them due to retirement, overwork, Brexit driving many foreign workers away and making our already fragile NHS buckle even more. The argument is that these are people who have got medical experience, that they have worked in and around doctors in supporting roles, possibly for years. And therefore this can be seen as, well, just another form of promotion, if you like. But years of experience doesn't replace qualification. You can have cabin crew, for example, with decades of experience on passenger aircraft, but you wouldn't let one fly the plane, would you? I used to work in ship repair. Do you know something that doesn't qualify me for? Captaining a bloody ship. Same difference here. Doctors Association UK, the DAUK, issued a statement saying they had urged Labour peers to back the Greens' fatal motion, which makes this all very clear. They wrote, "The Doctors Association UK, DAUK, is supporting a motion being laid before the House of Lords which aims to kill off plans for the regulation of non-doctors by the General Medical Council, GMC. Former Green Party leader Baroness Natalie Bennett is set to put down a fatal motion to throw out the draft Anaesthesia Associates and Physicians Associates Order 2024. DAUK has opposed GMC regulation of PAs and AAs and has called for a pause on their recruitment and rollout. The association has long-standing concerns that the legislation will blur the roles of doctors and non-doctors, creating a misunderstanding of the role of the PAs and presenting a significant risk to patient safety. It has written to Labour peers urging them to vote against the draft order." DAUK co-chair Dr Matt Neal said, "DAUK is strongly opposed to the Anaesthesia Associates and Physician Associates Order 2024 and welcomes the fatal motion being moved by Baroness Bennett. However, we're disappointed that Labour has not sought to back the position of putting patient safety first, given the very real concerns within the medical profession and amongst the public about non-doctors. There have been many reported instances of PAs operating beyond their competencies and being linked to patient harm. We need to pause the recruitment and rollout of PAs immediately until the scope of their roles is addressed by the GMC, the Royal Colleges and other stakeholders. The regulation of non-doctors and their rollout in the NHS is an issue of huge importance to the health of the nation, and we urge the Lords to oppose this legislation." DAUK this weekend reported the Royal Berkshire NHS Foundation Trust to the police over concerns around negligence leading up to a patient's death. It follows a report in the Sunday Telegraph that the family of celebrated film makeup artist Christopher Tucker had urged the coroner to investigate his death amidst concerns over his treatment by a PA. Meanwhile, a recent DAUK survey completed by more than 650 doctors highlighted significant worries about PAs operating beyond their competence and affecting the quality of medical training. Dr. Neil said there is a need for a regulatory framework for PAs away from the GMC register for doctors, which includes guidelines, supervision, accountability and patient safety. Patient safety must be paramount, and we believe GMC regulating medical associate professions, MAPS, could compromise that. We'll continue to work with the BMA, GMC, the colleges and other stakeholders to make these roles safer. So did Labour peers listen in the end? No. In fact, there was so little support for Natalie Bennett's fatal motion that she ended up being forced to withdraw it after the debate, so it never even went to a vote. The excuses and the reasoning from various peers are as insulting as they are infuriating. Tory peer Lord Whoops I Lost My Phone Bethel said, "We have to find people from somewhere to do GP appointments, and there are going to be some people, physician associates, that don't necessarily go through the 10 years of qualification to become a GP." He also got rather confused at one point and called the AA's associate anaesthetist, thus demonstrating that he didn't really even know what he was talking about. He won't be troubled by that, though. He can afford to go private. Perhaps we need some Lords associates to do the job instead of peers like you. Here's a novel idea. How about we elect them as well at the same time? Just a thought. Labour peers were just as bad, though. Pulse, the GP's magazine, covered this story, bringing up comments by Lord Hunt, with an excerpt from that magazine saying, "Arguing for the legislation, Lord Hunt of King's Heath, a Labour peer, criticised campaigners who list the errors made by PAs. He said, what would happen if we asked people to report mistakes made by F1 medics each August? The BMA is playing with fire in the campaign it has adopted by putting these poor professionals who are doing their best in this frame. I protest about this and the general lack of medical leadership from the profession when it should have been defending the associates. The way it has run away from this issue has been a disgrace. It will find that its lack of leadership and strength will bite it in future." That's a Labour peer attacking the doctors' trade union, the BMA. He also said that the government isn't bringing out PAs fast enough, and that he wants to see more of them than the 10,000 so far promised. Other peers were arguing that they wanted to see a list of comparative errors between doctors and PAs, as if that isn't missing the point entirely and blurring the very lines that this entire opposition has been about, the very argument the Greens were making against this move. Would you like to blindfold the doctors to make it fairer and perhaps deliver the findings you want as well? Well, the BMA itself tweeted out afterwards, "Extremely disappointing that peers have tonight waved through legislation that will blur the lines between PAs and doctors with potentially dangerous consequences for patients. We thank peers who urge government to heed the warnings of the medical profession." We won't have an NHS left with more of the Tories or an incoming Labour government led by Starmer, not when they are in a lockstep of not only introducing more privatisation into how the service is run, it might be free at point of use, but it will cost more and more to run to line those private investors' pockets, and all of that will be used as an excuse to claim it is becoming more and more unaffordable. It's all a lie, and this business with AAs and PAs is a cost-cutting exercise that will cost and cut lives. Our lives, not theirs, though. If you need an NHS, what has become unaffordable for you is a vote for the Tories or Labour. I delved into more detail on the meaning of these fake doctors last month in this video recommendation here if you wish to learn more. If this story has come unawares to you, I'd humbly suggest watching it next. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.